We're in the second week of our series on change called Rooted. Last week, we talked about how we're all going to experience good and bad changes in our lives. It's unavoidable. But just like trees can stand firm when they're rooted into the ground, we can stand firm no matter what changes life brings us when we're rooted in God. How? Because God never changes.
When something changes in a way that we don't want it to, it feels a lot like something has broken in our lives. And when that happens, often the first thing we try to do is fix it. We want things to go back to the way that they were. But the bad news is, a lot of times that isn't possible. Sometimes change means that whatever it is that's broken simply can't be fixed. And that can leave us feeling sad, or angry, or frustrated, or even helpless.
Have any of you seen the Pixar movie that came out a few years ago called Inside Out? In it, a girl named Riley moves from her hometown in Minnesota to San Francisco, California. It was a huge change for her, and as I'm sure you can imagine, it wasn't easy. If any of you have gone through a big change in your own life, you can probably relate to all of the emotions Riley felt when trying to process this huge, unfixable change in her own life.
Maybe for you, it was a breakup with your boyfriend or girlfriend. And no matter how much you wanted to get back together, you knew it just wasn't going to happen. Or maybe your parents separated and you hoped they'd work it out and fix their relationship, but they ended up getting divorced instead. Maybe you used to be the star player on your team, but this year someone else took the starting spot, and there's nothing you can do to get it back. You can't change the fact that you moved to a new house. You can't change the fact that you have to go to a new school. You can't change the fact that you failed that test. You can't fix the changes that make your life feel a little bit broken down right now.
When you're going through changes like that, sometimes it feels like the end of the story. Maybe you even wondered why God hasn't come in to fix what feels broken. Like where you wished there was a next chapter, God closed the book. Like where you wished there was a comma, God put a period on the end of that sentence. And instead of feeling rooted and safe, you feel frustrated and disappointed with the change that's so permanent in your life. You might even feel like you aren't rooted securely anymore.
If you've ever felt like that, just know you're not alone. Almost every person that has ever experienced a difficult or painful change in their lives has thought the same things. That's why it's important for us to know that while God hasn't promised to change everything the way we want Him to, He has promised us something else. And when we know what that promise is and what it means for our lives, it'll be easier to stay rooted in Him even when He doesn't fix the things we think are broken.
In the Old Testament, which is a section of books in the Bible written before Jesus came to earth, there's one main storyline that goes through almost all of the books. It's a storyline of God's relationship with the children of Israel. Through a man named Abraham, God created the nation, or group of people of Israel in an area of the world that we now call the Middle East. It was through that group of people that God would one day send the world His Son, Jesus. So, the nation of Israel was a really big deal to God. They were a part of His plan to free and save the whole world through Jesus.
But this group of people had a problem. They kept breaking things, mainly their relationship with God. Even though God chose them for a really important thing, they still got caught up in doing really selfish and stupid things that not only got them into trouble, but also went against God's plan. In fact, other nations would come, take them over, and even capture them. And this happened over and over again. And every time they got into trouble, guess what they did? They did what we all would probably do. They asked God to fix it.
Sometimes He did, and sometimes He didn't. But no matter what God did with the changes the nation of Israel was dealing with, He did promise them something that they could hold on to. And it's the same thing He promises us. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze.
Now, one thing we can't skip over is the way this is worded. When you pass through the waters, when you pass through the rivers, when you walk through the fire. In other words, things are going to change. You will find yourself in a difficult time. That's a guarantee. It's not a matter of if you do, but when you do. So if that's true, what does God promise us when those things happen? He promises us that He will be with us.
Now, I don't know if that's the type of promise you were hoping for from God. I mean, honestly, sometimes I kind of wish God would have said something else too. You know, maybe something like, no matter how hurt you are, or no matter how bad your situation is, I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna make things go back to the way they were, and it'll be all great. But that's not what he says. And that makes me think maybe God knows something that we don't.
Maybe he knows that more than we need things to be fixed, we need to know that he is with us. And I think that's actually good news. Because if change is going to happen, I want to know that God, who never changes, is going to be with me even when it does. And that's what I want you to remember today. God is with you.
No matter what you're going through, no matter what's happening at home, no matter how hurt you feel over what your friends did to you, no matter how sad you are because life will never go back to the way it was, God is with you.
And if you think about it, that really is an amazing promise. Because when I'm hurting from the changes life has brought me, the last thing I want to feel is alone, right? I want to know someone is going to be with me. Sometimes just knowing someone is there for you can make you feel so much better. And when that someone is God, who is bigger than anything else that's happening around us, well, that's the best feeling in the world.
You see, I think that God's presence with us really is the answer that we need. When God finally fulfilled his promise and sent Jesus into the world through the nation of Israel, one of Jesus' names was Emmanuel, meaning God with us. God wanted us to know that Jesus' life on earth was direct proof that God is with us all the time. During his ministry here on earth, Jesus said something similar to God's promise in Isaiah. He said, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world."
Jesus didn't shy away from the fact that we'll face troubling changes in this life, but he told us to take heart, to have courage and remain strong, because he has overcome the world. In other words, we can stay rooted in the fact that there is no change of trouble so big that God can't take care of it. He's made the promise to never leave us or to forsake us. He's made the promise to be with us. And when we're rooted in the truth of that promise, we can find the courage to face any difficult challenge or circumstance.
So what does it mean for us to do as Jesus said and take heart in the midst of change? What does it mean to stay rooted in the promise that God is with us? Well, I think it means making a decision. Like first, you have to choose simply to make a decision. You have to choose to make a decision to trust God in the middle of your difficult situation. You have to trust that this situation didn't take God by surprise, and you have to trust that God is with you.
And then you have to make one more decision, the decision to change your perspective. Choose to believe that God's promise of being with you is bigger and better than anything else he could do. Choose to believe that his presence will help you and get you through whatever it is that you're going through right now. Choose to believe that his presence can keep you rooted through whatever changes that you're facing.
Remember, God is with you, and that promise can carry you through any seemingly broken situation in your life. As you leave today, I want you to think about this question. What is one thing I wish God would fix in my life right now?